Hello and welcome to another review. This time we're going to have a look at the Dapol 00 gauge bubble car. This is the class 122 unit, as the class 121 has not been released yet. This one's obviously in the BR green with the yellow front, and it's got the head code boxes on the front as well. These were removed in the 70s, so if you have a BR blue version you'd obviously have that blank, and then as you go further towards the 80s and the 90s you'd have your high intensity headlights in the middle. Obviously what made the bubble car so special was obviously it was a single car unit. They were lovely and curvy, hence why they got the name the bubble car, and they had the two exhausts running up the cab end at one end. So I'm going to get into this review. We're going to have a look at the model and we're going to see what we think of it. So enjoy. Before we have a look at the model, I think we should have a quick look back on the history of the bubble car. So according to Dapol anyway, in the pamphlet that they provide, there you go, as part of the inside the box, it says that only 16 were built, but I can tell you that was actually 116 class 121 single bubble car, double-ended driving diesel mechanical vehicles were built from 1960 by the Pressed Steel Company of Oxford. Obviously I shouldn't be reading that because this is a class 122, so this is obviously the same again, single car, double-ended driving motor, so there's obviously an engine to power it and a cab at each end. Obviously it's a diesel mechanical vehicle, so that means it's got a mechanical gearbox just as a car or a truck would. Obviously when it changes gear there's a pause, obviously, where the engine disengages, and it gives it a really good sound. And these were actually built by the Gloucester Rail Carriage and Wagon Works during 1958. Meanwhile the 121s were built from 1960, so they were later, and built by Pressed Steel Company of Oxford. 9 single-ended driving trailers were also produced. I believe they were classed as either the 116 or the 117, I believe. These were mainly used on the London Midland region. Some were also used in Scotland. Routes served included many branch lines, as well as local services between Dundee and Arbroath. I think that's how you say it. Right, stop reading now. I'm gonna talk. Right, obviously this is the 122. The only a little guide for what the difference between a 122 and a 121 is obviously the front. Obviously it's got the it'd have the head code box at the top. Obviously they were later blanked in, and they were obviously where they were built and who they were built by. The 121 is obviously, I think, the more common of the bubble cars. They were obviously the last two that were running for Chiltern, and there's more 121s in preservation than there is the 122. But they have just done one up actually on the South Devon Railway in this exact livery. Actually, you could go out and ride this very vehicle should you wish to. But I think it's time to get into the actual model itself. So as you can see, it's a stunning. I'll take the camera off the tripod. Excuse me. So let's have a look. Okay, so as you can see, maybe if I put the light on. There you go. This is a DCC fitted bubble car. I'll just give you a quick walk around. Excuse the tractor. Rude place of the farmer to park it. It's a lovely model, as you can see. The details on it are absolutely great. I'll start at the driving end well, they're both driving ends, but this is the luggage end. As you can see, if I can get right in there, Dapol have done an excellent job on this. You've got the red buffer beams, obviously the big striking buffers that made the bubble car had that notorious look about them. Obviously you've got the double exhaust, but as this is the 1960 very early variant, they actually have, if you look on the top, sorry I can't point, they have the capped twin exhaust, so they join and they meet together and go out as one. This was later removed and the pipes just went straight up past the destination blind and didn't meet into one another. This gave them a better, raspier sort of noise, as the bubbles were rather known for. So as we move along, we can see in the cab, the windows are really good on this, obviously, hence why they got the name Bubble, was because they were like a bubble. They had glass all round and you can see really well into that cab. I don't think the camera's doing much justice, but you can obviously see the seats have been painted. You can see the handbrake, the big wheel in the centre wheel, in the centre window, has been painted. You can see all the controls. I don't know if, how well this is coming up for you, but the cab detail is immense on this. They've really put some time and effort into this model. So behind the signal, obviously, is the luggage compartment. Every bubble car had one of these. Obviously it was where the guard had his little part of the train, and obviously you could store your luggage on the train if you had any suitcases or anything. As we pan along the engine bay underneath, you can see that silver pipe at the bottom is the exhaust that runs obviously from the engine. It runs along. You've got the battery box and you've got some other bits and bobs under there. Obviously it's all painted, it does stick out, it's quite noticeable. You've got a lovely view inside and through the train. Like I say, it's just windows galore. Dapol have even gone to the effort of painting the seats. These have been painted red. This is more of a 1970s style, but I'm not an expert on what seat covers these would have wore, so please forgive me. The only gripe I think I've got with this model at the moment is there's the floor. So look, you're just about, well, you're level with the window and the floor sits only a tad lower than it. I understand why, is because obviously the model drives at both ends. So it's an 8-wheel drive, so obviously you've got your motor in the luggage compartment, which is really well hidden. You can't see it at all. It's brilliant. And obviously you've got pickups and drive at that end, so obviously the floor has to be raised so they can fit all the gubbins underneath. So I can understand why it's been done, and I'd rather them do that. At least they've not done a Batman and just tinted all the windows and said no, you can't look in. It makes it, I was going to fit passengers, but as you can see, look, they literally have no legs, and due to how easily it is to sit in the coach, I think it would be rather noticeable that none of the passengers had legs. So I'm just going to keep it empty for now anyway. If we go down to the other end, just like the other cab end, without the exhaust, so it's a cleaner looking end. As you can see, you've even got the lamp irons there. Obviously you've got head and tail lights. If we go back down to the other end, we'll talk about lights. As you can see, you've got the destination blind at the top, which does light up. If I change it, you'll notice how it dims. There you go, and it lights back up. And you've got the head and tail lights, and you've got the blind in between the two exhausts. I have not fitted them yet, as I will be doing this, well, probably once I finish this video actually. I'm going to fit a Shrewsbury and Wellington destination blind to each end, and in the middle I'm going to have C2, because if you look at most of the pictures that's what they all say, so that's what I'm going to go for. I think we should have a quick look now at the model running. So enjoy. Okay, another thing I'd like to talk about in this review is the DCC capability of this model. If you run DC, then obviously you shouldn't have no problems, but the majority of people now are going to DCC, and I've been DCC now for many years. Usually you either throw an 8-pin, as that's being phased out now. It's normally a 21-pin. Usually you throw a normal 21-pin chip into a loco. It's literally plug and play. Then you can control your lights. Obviously you can control the movement forward and back, no problems. But now Dapol is going down a more sophisticated route where you can have more functions from DCC. Now a normal Batman decoder has 4 functions. Okay, so you can control your headlights, your tail lamps, and your cab lights, and forward and reverse. So obviously that takes your functions. But with Dapol now, they have gone the way that they want a 6-function decoder. So then you can independently control like your headlights, your tail lights, your cab light. If you press F2, I don't know if you can see it, the other cab light illuminates. But if you press F3, your saloon lights, so your coach lights down the middle there, are supposed to light up. But obviously, as this isn't a 6-pin chip, I can't control it. So all I can control is the destination blinds and the headlights on the front, the tail lamps on the rear, and the cab light. So I'd have thought Dapol would have put a switch where you could override it and just leave the saloon lights on permanently, but you can't. So I went and asked the question. I haven't seen many DCC 6-function chips, 21-pin chips on the market. They're quite rare. And I asked my model shop, I said, do you stock any, or do you know any? He said, we don't stock any. He said, they are very rare, and if you do come across them, they are quite expensive. He said, you've got to, you can't go to Hatton's, don't stock them, Rails don't, my local model shop doesn't. So he said you have to go to like a specialist like company like Zemo, who do specialist DCC decoders, and buy a 6-function decoder. But that's £35 for the chip alone. That's £35 on top of £123 for the model, which I just think is preposterous. Now, you can buy a DCC fitted model, which is only £20 more than 120, so it's £143. But you have to wait about 3-4 weeks after this release to get it. But why should I be stung by having to wait an extra month over everyone else just to get that? Why can't I just have a normal chip, throw it in, and then control all my lights? Like, I don't want to control the other cab light. See, on function 2, if I press function 2, flickers the guard's cab light on and off, and I don't want to. Now, if you look through the really complicated DCC sheet that Dapol do provide, you've got all this where you can control different things and switch different switches and stuff. But if you check here, 4-function decoder, that's what I've got next to my thumb. Carriage lights here, NA, not applicable. So you can only control it, look, on DCC if you have a 5 or 6-function decoder. But they're really rare and they're hard to come by, and they're blooming expensive. You know, so I like what Dapol's done, trying to make it all sophisticated and everything, but maybe the market's just not ready for it at the moment. Shame. And while I am on the subject of negatives, this model's absolutely stunning, and if I tell you the truth, this is one of the first models. If you look straight at your layout, and this model is sat on your layout like it is now, it's one of the first ones you turn and look at, because it literally replicates the real thing so well. Like the livery's right, you know, they've got all the details right. It's literally striking. Like some locos, you know, you wouldn't even notice they're sat there, but this really pushes the boat out. But it's got a few running characteristics I don't like. Now, I don't know whether this is just my model and I've got a poor runner, but for a good few laps, even like literally the model just being sitting here now, if I try to get it to move, it is really sluggish and the motor is really noisy. So if I try and show you that now, that's half. So out of 28 speed steps, that's 14, and it just crawls along. Now it keeps doing that until a good 4 or 5 minutes of running, and then it eventually starts picking up a bit more of a normal running speed. There you go, look, just crawling in. There you go, there's set it to 0, and then it eventually comes to a stop. It's just sluggish, and the pickups on it aren't great. To think that it's got 8 wheels, 4 axles, pickups on every wheel. When you go over a point mainly, it stutters and it stalls. The lights go off, then you have to either give it a bit of a nudge or it eventually gets going again. So this is something that could be rectified in the later batches of the bubble car, or hopefully they'll sort it for the class 121, or else I'd definitely recommend a class 121, but obviously with that in the back of my mind, it's not something I'd probably pre-order or rush out to go and buy. But I definitely recommend this model. Every layout's got to have one. You can, if you model anything from the late 50s all the way up to 2017 with the Chiltern bubble cars, you can get them in that many liveries. It's great. You can even get its sister, the bubble car, the 121. You can get that in special liveries. I'm after the NSE early livery, so it's got the stripes going up the side of the cab. That's going to be paired up with this one, and they can run around as a pair. It's a cracking model, and Dapol, I will give it to them. We've waited a while, but they have not disappointed us. So I'd like to thank you all for watching. I know it's probably been another boring old ramble again, but if you've got any thoughts or comments or anything you'd like to see me do next time in a video, then drop me a comment. You know, I'm on Twitter. If you're on there, give me a follow, give me a message. You know, I'm out there. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.